Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and on the screen right now what you're seeing is me drawing the background for one of the 51 animation challenges. This one in particular is a brick falling off a shelf, so the shelf is obviously part of the background, and thus we have to kind of think about this a little bit. So, well, I need to draw a background, so I decided to go ahead and do that with linear perspective rather than curvilinear perspective. Don't worry, the entire video is not a speed painting. Most of my videos that are speed paintings where I'm drawing a background, they tend to get less views than the other ones. And I'm not really quite sure why, because really my channel is not just about Opentoonz, but also kind of focuses on the entire production process. I mean, I'm going to get into all of this. The creation of a background, the collection process of sound effects, the process of cleaning up sound effects, everything, all the way down to like the actual animation process. A lot of times tutorials focus on,
okay guys, this is how you move an arm. Okay guys, this is how you do a walk cycle or a run cycle.
And I plan on covering all that, but none of that means anything unless you happen to know how to do the entire process, and so that's what my channel is really about in a lot of different ways. But anyways, while working on this project, I messaged Adam Earl, who I've mentioned previously multiple times on my channel. Adam Earl is a professional animator. I go to him pretty frequently just to talk about animation and stuff like that, and he leaves a few critiques here and there about videos and sometimes gives advice. Basically what I said is I think I have a love-hate relationship with animation. What I love is that it's like a puzzle that needs to be solved. What I hate is that it's a puzzle that needs to be solved. I love that it's like a never-ending drawing. It just goes on and on and on and on, and I'm serious about that statement. I enjoy drawing. That's what I love doing, and so animation just kind of extends the process where I'm able to make this drawing last longer, and then by the end it's not just a drawing, it's a series of movements, and I really do love that aspect of animation. And at this point, Adam Earl went ahead and responded, and he said,
"Hey mate, this is where I usually give an artist a pep talk. Here's the thing, animation is hard. It's a lot of work, 2D or 3D, and only until you accept the fact that the computer isn't going to help you, and it's all on you, you won't be able to love it entirely. Everybody thinks that the computer will make them better, but realities are, it's your practiced knowledge. Sometimes it's best just to go out there and just do it. Even when it hurts, animation is the mental meatball of spaghetti. It's always messy. The trick is to just not care. Hard work, do the job, and you will find your zen. I can't say you will love it or hate it, but if you run around the track more than once, twice, or 3 times, you will be in a place that's really worthwhile. You just have to do. There's an art form just in that. Good luck, mate."
And that's what he said, which I do appreciate the pep talk. I was just kind of curious what his response would be, and I do appreciate the feedback, because this is a little bit more convoluted than just my Punching Man animation to some extent, because it really got me to think, how am I going to actually animate this? So I finished drawing out the background in Krita and saved it as a JPEG so that it can be converted into a vector rather easily by Opentoonz. Now, Opentoonz can convert not just JPEGs, but PNGs as well. But for some reason it seems like Opentoonz has an extra amount of difficulty with PNGs being converted into vectors. I saved a few versions of the background, and some of this was so that I could actually have some ease of creating the animation, or maybe have at least a few choices at my disposal rather than limiting myself to just one choice. I made a version of the background that has no books on the bookshelf, another version where the books are up on the shelf but the brick to the right is missing, and with the third version of the background it has the full image with the bookshelf, the books, and the brick to the right functioning as the bookend. Don't ask me why someone would use a brick as a bookend, but I decided whoever lives at this house uses bricks as bookends. My thought process was that I do this exercise in a 3D environment, unlike the moving bouncing ball animations I did for the prior versions of the 51 animation challenges so far. So this poses a number of challenges in the form of a question, such as, why does the brick fall from the shelf? Now, to answer that, the reason why I think a brick would function as a terrible bookend is because they tend to be rather lightweight.
Your face is lightweight.
Shut up.
No, you shut up.
So I figured that the weight of the books would eventually lean over, push the brick off the shelf, and probably even basically push one of the books off the shelf as well after the brick falls, while all the other books would be leaning over like a series of tipped over dominoes. So with me giving this challenge this sort of thought process, it's pretty clear that I'm giving this challenge its due respect by thinking of everything in terms of cause and effect, and even possibly considering having a book fall down with the brick as well, which pretty much just means more work for me. So here I am getting started with this. Although I know I have a lot of technical knowledge about basically Opentoonz at this point, I'm not really quite sure how I'm going to get this animation done, but I embark on the journey nonetheless with the thought process failure is not an option. So with the startup pop-up window, I can see that I'm currently in the 51 animation challenges project already. So I need to create a new scene and call it Brick Fall by going File, New Scene, and typing in Brick Fall. Just pay attention to the screen and you'll see that in the browser, in 51 animation challenges, there's a file called Scenes, and in it I now have a scene called Brick Fall, and all the scenes share the same drawing folder. So at this point, although I know better, I try throwing in my background and trying to get it all into the same level strip file in all the wrong ways.
Like an idiot.
I am wondering if there's any way for the developers to make this process more click-and-drop friendly, rather than making everything so technical, with having to label each and every single one of your digital sheets of paper in what will become your level strip file in such a specific way. I don't understand why it has to be such a specific technical process. That is something that I'm interested in getting worked out. It'd make the interface a bit more user-friendly. If you watch what's going on the screen, you can probably deduct what sort of logic I was going under to try to get all these versions of the background to form just one level strip file. So in my Windows File Explorer, I rename all my background images, call it BG for background. That's what it stands for, BG, background. I write 4 zeros and then put in the number 1 for frame 1. So for frame 2, I label it BG 00002. For frame 3, I label it BG 00003. Now, if I had frames go up to frame 10, it would be BG 00010. If I had, say, 100 digital sheets of level strip digital paper, I'd call it BG 00100, and so on and so forth towards the thousands and such. That's how the logic inside of Opentoonz works out. Like I said, I wish that it was more click and drop friendly. It may seem pretty overcomplicated, but really if you're just watching what's going on the screen, you should be able to understand everything that I just described verbally. I then select all 3 of my files that I want to have share the same level strip, and click and drag it into the drawings folder in my 51 animations challenges in the browser room or tab. All 3 of them appear right there in the browser. I then right click on the first frame of these files I just clicked and dragged into the browser, and a drop down menu appears, and from it I click rename. The pop-up window that then appears suggests BG as the name, as this level strip file, which is actually exactly what I wanted the level strip file to be called. There's also a little checkbox there on this pop-up window that reads delete original files. I tick that checkbox and then click the button rename at the bottom of the pop-up. Once I do that, all the original files called BG00001 and BG00002 and BG00003 were deleted from the browser and is now replaced with the level strip file quaintly called BG. So I then go into my Windows folder where I originally saved the background drawings when I finished working on them with Krita, and I can see that the original files still exist. The files that were deleted were just the files that I clicked and dragged into the browser. When you put files into the browser, what you're doing is you're throwing them into the Opentoonz stuff folder, which also goes into whatever the name of your project is, and then into that project's drawing folder. I'm hoping this makes sense to you guys because it took a few weeks for me to experiment and figure out how the browser works. So at this point I need to load the BG file into the scene, and you can do this by either clicking and dragging it into the box at the bottom of the browser, or right click on the file up there, and then a little drop down menu appears and you just click load. You can also, inside of the browser, right click on a level file and click on view from the drop down menu, and a weird browser version of the viewer will appear in the form of a pop-up window. This browser's version of the viewer works really weird. It has some weird controls. It operates like the FX schematic and the stage schematic, so pressing the plus and minus keys on the keyboard will zoom in and zoom out of the image, which I don't understand why it doesn't just work like the normal viewer, but oh well. But for this particular viewer, you have to press plus or minus in order to zoom in or zoom out. And to pan around the scene, you have to press and hold the middle mouse button and just basically move your mouse around in order for it to pan around. Again, I don't know why the spacebar wouldn't work for this particular type of viewer, but oh well. And from this browser version of the viewer, you can also scrub through the animation, and this is the only thing about this browser version of the viewer that works like pretty much any other viewer, be it the viewer or the combo viewer. You just basically click and drag on the scrubber. Once I click into the basic tab or room, we can look into the timeline and we can see BG frame 1, 2, and 3, and they're all on separate frames and also on the same column, just like I wanted from the very beginning. And on the level strip, we see all three of these drawings share the same level strip. The next problem that I can see with this image is that my background is absolutely huge, and that red square in the middle of it is the size of my camera. And there's absolutely no reason for the background to be that large. So I go to the top of the screen, click on level settings, and this brings you to a pop-up window that shows dimensions of the image in the level strip file. At first, it lists its width as 3,381 millimeters, so I changed the horizontal field to 300 and pressed enter, and it automatically adjusted the height, and I can see the size of the image immediately snapped to this new measurement. I tinkered with it a bit until I was happy with the size that I wanted in comparison to the camera, and basically just eventually settled with 230 millimeters for this particular image size's horizontal field. At this point, I converted this level into a vector by going up to the top of the screen, clicking level, convert to vectors. A pop-up window appears, and if you click on the eyeball button to the lower left of this window, it allows you to see a preview of what you're working on. It shows to the left the raster version, and to the right the vector version. And if you want to zoom in or out of this little viewer here to kind of preview how it looks in the raster and vector version, it works kind of like the browser version of the viewer. You press plus or minus in order to zoom in or out, and use the middle mouse button to basically pan around. I then click convert at the bottom of this window, and it went ahead and converted these JPEGs into a good looking piece of vector art. I don't know why, but before filming this, basically I tried working on this project with PNG files, and for some reason it didn't work. It worked for my cutout animation series, but for some reason the PNG file format didn't work this time around. So I think it's a safe bet that if you want to convert images to vectors, just use JPEGs. Now, if you look at the X sheet or timeline, you'll notice that it created a new column with the vector work. Now in this case, this didn't work out for me because it only had one digital sheet of paper in the level strip for the vector work. So I went ahead and deleted the vector work and put all 3 levels into 3 frames on the timeline and went to level convert to vector once again, and then clicked convert. And at this stage I successfully managed to convert all 3 digital sheets of paper onto the same level strip file, as is seen by the new column on the timeline. And when this column is selected, we can see all 3 images are on the level strip as well. So I go ahead and get rid of the raster column and decide to work exclusively with the vector version of this background. I go ahead and make one small adjustment to the image with the control point editor and then go ahead and color the image. I create a new style. I draw a border around the area that I want to have filled because Opentoonz won't color in areas that are just open. Then I change the color of my new style to a pale blue color and use my fill tool. I colored the baseboards and the floor with the exact same method. I then color in just about everything else without too many problems, and I do this with all 3 frames of the animation. When I start working with the other frames, I copy and paste the borders for the walls, baseboards, and floors, and then paste them into the other frames. This is probably the only good thing about Opentoonz's weird non-physical fill technique, in that after I pasted in the borders, it automatically filled in the walls, baseboards, and floors. It just automatically filled them. Now, I do actually have a super basic tutorial on coloring your animation, but simple or not, it can come in handy. So if you're struggling, feel free to watch that and come back to this video. But keep in mind that in this video, I am going to discuss one coloring technique that I didn't talk about in that earlier coloring tutorial that I find kind of invaluable. The oddest thing about the fill tool in Opentoonz is that only sometimes the Ctrl-Z functionality works for it, probably because it doesn't create physical fills like I wish it would. I've requested physical fills on GitHub, but they seem to be dead set on going with this stupid non-physical fill technique as if it were some sort of unique feature to Opentoonz. To me, it's not so much of a feature as much as it is a
Giant pain in my ass.
It's easily the worst feature in Opentoonz. Now at this moment, just ignore pretty much everything you see going on the X sheet or timeline, because I was doing a lot of experimentation in this video, and I was thinking about working on my timing as I'd be animating the scene and all that, but right now I think the main priority is just setting up keyframes, then creating my extremes, and then setting up the timing at that point, and then with the in-betweens, setting up the ease in, ease out, speed in, speed out sort of information. So I go to the frame where everything is in the image, and I select both bricks on the left and right and all the books on that bookcase. I then press Ctrl-C in order to copy what's there. I make a new vector level and call it Books. And in column 2, I move it over to where my background with none of the books or bricks are resting on top of the bookshelf by pressing Ctrl-V on the keyboard. And in this situation, I had difficulty filling the image in, so I did a technique I call sweeping. I draw a line across the object that I want to have filled, and then fill in an area that can actually get filled. I then use the control point editor and slowly move the node in a sweeping motion around the image that I want to have filled. This way I can easily find the problem areas and easily find the areas that are just working out just fine. And I can address each thing that's causing a problem just bit by bit through a process of elimination. This usually works. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it works like a good 80% of the time. Now, I need the brick to exist all on its own column. all by itself. So I select the brick and then press Ctrl X for cut. I then create another vector level and call it brick, and then paste it into this new vector level by pressing Ctrl V. I then select the version of the background that has the entire book behind the brick. I copy it and then paste it in where the incomplete book happens to be. I then use the sweep technique to color in the book. So this video is getting rather long. I know that I haven't really even done any real animation inside of this video because I was too busy getting a bunch of preliminary work done, but such is life, you know? And I feel like this works as a standalone video because I've taught you how to import your animation from a third-party program. I taught you a little about the browser. I've taught another way to convert your images into vectors. I've taught a tiny bit on how to color your images, and I've sort of shared a little bit of the thought process of how I'm thinking about working around the issue of overlapping action happening all at once, all in one scene. I hope this tutorial was helpful to you guys, and if you liked the video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and if you guys didn't like it, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. Have a great day.